In the summer of the late 1990s, somewhere on a quiet industrial road after midnight, the sound that echoed through the darkness wasn't the deep rumble of a big block V8. It was something much sharper, a high-pitched whistle, the scream of a turbocharger building boost. Then, silence for just a split second. The air smelled like racing fuel and burnt rubber. Streetlights flickered overhead. A crowd of maybe 50 people lined both sides of the road, their faces illuminated by headlights and the glow of cigarettes. Money changed hands. Bets were placed. Most of it was on the Dodge. The light turned green. A bright orange Dodge with a 426 Hemi swap exploded off the line, its rear tires fighting for grip. Smoke poured from the wheel wells. The exhaust note shook windows 3 blocks away. The crowd expected another easy victory for American muscle. Instead, a small all-wheel drive Mitsubishi Eclipse launched like it had been fired from a slingshot. No wheel spin, no drama. Just violent, calculated acceleration. 4 tires hooked. The turbo screamed. By the top of second gear, the little 4-cylinder had already pulled ahead. The Hemi driver shifted into third, desperately trying to close the gap. It didn't matter. By the finish, the Hemi was staring at nothing but taillights. The crowd went silent, then erupted. Half of them couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. The other half had just lost serious money betting against a car that looked like a high school student's first import. Most people think big engines always beat small ones, but what almost nobody knows is that one 4-cylinder engine rewrote the rules of street racing. It embarrassed Hemis, big block Chevys, Cobra Jets, and just about anything brave enough to line up beside it. And the secret wasn't just horsepower, it was engineering. The real story begins thousands of miles away from America's drag strips, inside Mitsubishi's engineering department during the late 1970s. At the time, the automotive world still believed there was no replacement for displacement. If you wanted more power, you built a bigger engine. More cylinders, more cubic inches, more fuel, more noise. That philosophy had worked perfectly fine for decades, until it didn't. The 1973 oil crisis had changed everything. Fuel prices skyrocketed. Governments imposed efficiency standards. Insurance companies crushed muscle car owners with astronomical premiums. American manufacturers responded by strangling their legendary V8s with emissions equipment. Horsepower dropped. Performance died. The golden age of American muscle seemed finished. Japanese manufacturers couldn't compete that way anyway. They didn't have a heritage of big block V8s. They couldn't rely on cubic inches. Their home market taxed vehicles based on displacement, forcing them to think smaller. Instead, they asked a different question. What if a smaller engine could make the same power without carrying all the extra weight? That question led to the birth of one of the greatest 4-cylinder engines ever built, the Mitsubishi 4G63. Introduced in 1980 as part of Mitsubishi's Sirius engine family, the original version wasn't designed to terrify muscle cars. It was a practical iron block inline-4 built for everyday transportation. It displaced 1,997 cubic centimeters, just over 2 liters. Its cast iron block measured an 85mm bore and an 88mm stroke, giving it a slightly under-square design that favored torque over sky-high RPM. Early naturally aspirated versions produced around 110 to 135 horsepower depending on the market. Respectable. Nothing revolutionary, nothing that would make a V8 owner nervous. But underneath that modest output sat something incredibly important: strength. The cast iron block was massively overbuilt, thick cylinder walls, a rigid bottom end, 5 large main bearings supporting the crankshaft, forged steel crankshaft on many turbo variants, deep skirt block design that extended well below the crankshaft centerline, adding rigidity. It was the kind of engine architecture engineers usually reserved for much larger power plants. Why did Mitsubishi build it so tough? Some say it was intended for commercial vehicle use from the beginning. Others believe the engineers simply over-engineered it because that's what Japanese manufacturers did during that era. The true reason probably lies somewhere in between. Nobody knew it yet. But they had accidentally built the perfect turbo engine, and then everything changed. In 1987, Mitsubishi unveiled the turbocharged DOHC 16-valve version inside the Galant VR4. Suddenly, the quiet commuter engine became something entirely different. Compression ratio dropped to around 7.8, one in early turbo models to safely handle boost pressure. An intercooled turbocharger forced compressed air into the cylinders. Electronic fuel injection precisely controlled the mixture. The cylinder head received dual overhead camshafts and 4 valves per cylinder. Factory output jumped to roughly 195 horsepower and over 200 pound-feet of torque. Today, those numbers might not seem extraordinary. Back then, they were enough to shock much larger V8-powered cars. But Mitsubishi wasn't finished. The company's rally ambitions demanded something even tougher. That requirement produced the Lancer Evolution, and with it, the legend truly began. The first Evolution debuted in 1992 exclusively for the Japanese market. It was built for one purpose: homologation for Group A rally racing. Mitsubishi needed to build enough road-going versions to qualify the car for competition. They built 2,500 units. Every single one sold immediately. The Evolution's 4G63 received constant development through multiple generations. Turbochargers grew larger and more efficient, cylinder heads flowed better, intake systems improved, engine management became smarter with each iteration, horsepower climbed steadily. Evo 1, 247 horsepower, Evo 2, 256 horsepower, Evo 3, 270 horsepower. Then the numbers stopped climbing, not because the engineers ran out of ideas, but because of Japan's gentleman's agreement. Officially, many Japanese market Evolutions claimed 276 horsepower because of an industry-wide agreement among Japanese automakers to limit advertised output. This informal pact, which lasted from 1989 until 2004, was meant to discourage dangerous street racing and keep insurance costs manageable. Unofficially, many produced well over 300 horsepower straight from the showroom. Dyno tests consistently showed the truth. The advertised numbers were conservative. Some Evolutions were making 320 horsepower at the wheels, meaning the engine itself was producing well over 360 horsepower at the crankshaft. And because the Evo weighed barely over 3,000 pounds, while sending power through an advanced all-wheel drive system with active center differential and rear limited slip differential, it launched with astonishing violence. 0 to 60 happened in around 5 seconds, or even quicker with skilled drivers who mastered the launch control systems introduced in later generations. The Hemi might have made more power. It usually couldn't put it to the ground. But the 4G63 wasn't just available in Japanese market Evolutions. American enthusiasts got their hands on it through a completely different avenue: the Diamond Star Motors partnership. In 1985, Chrysler and Mitsubishi formed a joint venture and built a manufacturing plant in Normal, Illinois. The goal was to produce affordable, sporty compact cars for the American market. That partnership gave birth to 3 mechanical siblings: the Mitsubishi Eclipse, the Eagle Talon, the Plymouth Laser. All 3 could be equipped with turbocharged 4G63 engines and all-wheel drive. The Eclipse GSX and Talon TSI AWD became instant legends: affordable, practical, fast, and endlessly modifiable. Suddenly, American tuners had easy access to the same basic engine architecture that was dominating rally stages across the world. They went absolutely crazy with it. But there was another reason the 4G63 became nearly unbeatable. It loved boost. Most production engines begin falling apart once tuners double the factory horsepower. Pistons crack, rods bend, head gaskets blow, blocks split. The 4G63 almost seemed to enjoy it. Builders discovered the factory iron block could reliably support 500 horsepower with surprisingly few internal changes. Install forged pistons, upgrade connecting rods, strengthen the head studs, improve fuel delivery with larger injectors, add a better fuel pump, upgrade the turbocharger, tune it correctly. Suddenly 700 horsepower wasn't impossible. Some drag builds pushed beyond 1,000. Others crossed 1,500. Eventually, specialized billet block versions exceeded 2,000 horsepower, from 2 liters. Think about that. A displacement smaller than many motorcycle engines was producing more power than Formula One cars from just a few years earlier. More power per liter than most exotic supercars. More than some top fuel dragsters made just 2 decades prior. But raw horsepower never tells the whole story. The engineering mattered even more. Unlike many engines that struggled with lubrication under high loads, the Ford G63 featured an exceptionally robust oiling system. Its deep skirt cast iron block minimized crankshaft flex under extreme cylinder pressures. The factory oil pump was gear-driven directly off the crankshaft, ensuring consistent oil pressure even at high RPM. Cross-flow aluminum cylinder heads improved cooling efficiency, while dual overhead camshafts controlled 4 valves per cylinder for excellent breathing at high RPM. Peak factory redline hovered around 7,000 revolutions per minute. Race engines regularly exceeded 9,000, some drag motors pushed past 10,000. The turbocharged combustion chambers handled remarkable cylinder pressures because Mitsubishi engineers had designed generous cooling passages around the cylinders. The block featured Siam cylinders in some areas, which reduced cooling slightly but dramatically increased strength. It wasn't magic, it was preparation, or perhaps over-engineering. Either way, it created something nearly indestructible. Still, every legend has weaknesses, and the Ford G63 was no exception. Push factory balance shafts too hard, and failures became common. These counter-rotating shafts were designed to smooth out vibrations inherent in inline-4 engines, but they added complexity and potential failure points at extreme power levels. Many builders simply removed them. Timing belts demanded meticulous maintenance. Ignore replacement intervals, and bent valves were almost guaranteed because the engine was an interference design, meaning the valves and pistons occupied the same space at different times. If the belt jumped or broke, catastrophic engine damage followed immediately. Crankwalk became notorious on some second-generation Eclipse GSX and GST models, particularly the later 7-bolt engines produced during the mid-1990s. Owners described clutch pedals sticking to the floor, strange grinding noises, end play increased. Eventually, the crankshaft shifted longitudinally enough to destroy thrust bearings and main bearings. Forums exploded with horror stories. Some mechanics refused to build 7-bolt engines altogether, but experienced builders eventually traced many failures to a combination of factors: inadequate lubrication to the thrust bearing, heavy clutch pressure plates creating excessive thrust loads, manufacturing tolerances that were slightly looser than earlier engines, and aggressive clutch dumps during hard launches. Earlier 6-bolt versions became prized for their incredible durability. The crankshaft was held in place by 6 bolts at the flywheel, rather than 7. This design, combined with tighter manufacturing tolerances and different thrust-bearing materials, proved far more resistant to crankwalk. Today, they're still among the most sought-after foundations for high-horsepower builds. The nightmare had an answer, and the legend survived. As tuning exploded across America during the late 1990s and early 2000s, the Ford G63 became the king of underground street racing. Movies made turbo imports famous. The Fast and the Furious franchise introduced mainstream audiences to the culture, but reality was often even crazier. On Friday nights across California, Texas, Florida, and countless industrial parks nationwide, V8 owners laughed when they saw a 4-cylinder Mitsubishi pull into the staging area. The car looked unassuming, maybe lowered on coilovers, perhaps an aftermarket exhaust, nothing particularly threatening. Then they lost, again and again. Why? Traction. A naturally aspirated Hemi, making 600 horsepower, often spent the first 100 feet roasting its rear tires. Even with drag radials and weight transfer modifications, getting that power to the ground remained a constant challenge. An all-wheel drive Eclipse GSX or Lancer Evolution simply launched. Every pound-foot reached the pavement. All 4 tires clawed at the asphalt simultaneously. The advantage was devastating. A modified Ford G63 producing 600 horsepower could run the quarter mile in the high 9-second range, with trap speeds exceeding 145 miles per hour. Some street-driven Evos capable of running 10s could then be driven home, parked in a normal garage, and driven to work Monday morning. That versatility was part of the magic. As development continued, dedicated drag Evos shattered expectations. English racing became one of the most respected names in the community, building four-cylinder Mitsubishis capable of running well into the 7-second quarter-mile zone at over 190 miles per hour. Buescher Racing built similar monsters. AMS Performance pushed the boundaries even further. Shops like these proved the Ford G63 could compete with purpose-built race cars. That wasn't just quick, that was supercar territory. Actually, it was faster than many purpose-built race cars costing 10 times as much. The achievements kept coming. The evolution became one of rallying's greatest weapons. Drivers like Tommy Mäkinen helped turn Mitsubishi into a dominant force during the World Rally Championship in the late 1990s. The combination of the turbocharged Ford G63, sophisticated all-wheel drive, and relentless durability earned 4 consecutive World Rally Drivers' Championships from 1996 through 1999. Mäkinen's driving skill was legendary. But even he admitted the car gave him an advantage. The engine's torque delivery, the all-wheel drive system's intelligence, and the chassis balance created something special. Rally stages that would destroy most engines became just another day at work for the Ford G63. Those victories weren't just trophies. They proved the engine could survive brutal punishment across snow, gravel, mud, and asphalt while producing competitive power day after day. Finland's frozen forests, Australia's scorching deserts, Argentina's rocky mountain passes. The Ford G63 conquered them all. That same toughness translated directly into street tuning. Most people don't realize that's why tuners trusted the Ford G63 so much. It had already survived conditions far harsher than any highway pull. It had been validated at the highest levels of motorsport, but success eventually attracted new problems. Governments tightened emissions regulations worldwide. Insurance companies labeled turbo-performance cars as high risk, especially after movies glamorized street racing. Manufacturers shifted toward fuel economy and lower emissions as environmental concerns grew. Public perception of performance cars changed. Mitsubishi gradually moved away from the legendary engine. The final Evolution X abandoned the Ford G63 entirely, replacing it with the aluminum block 4B11T. It was an excellent engine, lighter, more modern, cleaner, more powerful from the factory, more efficient, yet among enthusiasts, something felt different. The cast-iron warrior was gone. Production of the Ford G63 slowly came to an end after decades of service, spanning multiple continents and countless vehicles. But its reputation only grew. Today, original Evolutions equipped with untouched Ford G63 engines command enormous prices. Clean Eclipse GSX models have become collectibles worth multiples of their original sticker price. 6-bolt engine blocks disappear almost instantly whenever they appear for sale, often fetching thousands of dollars for a bare block. Entire companies exist solely to manufacture upgraded cylinder heads, billet blocks, forged rotating assemblies, dry sump systems, giant turbo kits, and standalone engine management for an engine first designed over 40 years ago. Very few power plants enjoy that kind of aftermarket support decades after production ends. Even fewer earn genuine respect from both import and muscle car enthusiasts. Because deep down, every racer respects one thing: results. The Hemi represented raw American muscle, massive displacement, thunderous torque, an unforgettable soundtrack that announced its presence blocks away. Heritage stretching back to the golden age of NASCAR dominance. The Ford G63 represented something completely different: efficiency, precision, boost, intelligence over brute force. It proved that intelligence could beat cubic inches, that engineering could overcome size, that sometimes the smallest engine in the race was actually the most dangerous. That's why this story still matters today. The Mitsubishi Ford G63 didn't just beat Hemis in street races. It forced an entire generation of enthusiasts to rethink what performance really meant. A 2-liter cast-iron 4-cylinder showed the world that horsepower is only part of the equation. The way you build it, the way you deliver it, and the way you put it to the ground can change everything. It proved that an affordable car built in Illinois could embarrass exotics, that technology could level the playing field, that the underdog could win. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the greatest giant killers ever built, let me know in the comments which legendary engine or forgotten street racing icon you'd like to see next. And don't forget to subscribe, because some of the greatest stories in automotive history aren't about the biggest engines, they're about the smartest ones.